Believe me, building an aesthetic body and transforming my life from skinny to jacked was the best thing I ever did for every single realm of my life. But there are a few things, the few key mistakes that I made along my journey of gaining 25 kilos, specifically related to the diet and how I was eating to bulk up and gain this mass, which I want to show you today so you can stop making the same mistakes that I did and actually speed up your progress quicker. And it all comes down to the understanding that when we're bulking and gaining quality size for the first time, we don't want to be coping and we need to set good standards and actually fuel our body correctly. And the quality of food will change how our physique looks, even if the same calories are consumed, right? So basically, why should you trust me? I went from a 60 kilo beginner looking like this absolutely skinny skeleton piece of shit to an 85 jacked, lean and aesthetic, and I get attention from girls, I get respect from guys, basically everything I wanted when I first built my physique. I'm still working on it though, but these are some crazy gains that I have made. And now, number one mistake that I made on my bulk is thinking that more fats equals more calories, right? Well, this is true. There are 9 calories per gram of fat, there are 4 calories per gram of protein, and there are 4 calories per gram of carb. So the first instinct that we get when we're trying to bulk up as guys who are skinny, insecure, and want to gain mass as quickly as possible is, well, increase our fat intake, right? And I thought the same thing, and this is an excellent idea. However, you have to be careful of where your fats are coming from, because my staple diet consisted of eating nut bars, consisted of eating pesto pasta. I used to buy these things from Coles in Australia, like pesto sauce, and also eating things like chips. We have a restaurant called Schnitz, they fry their chips, and I used to get like a family pack for pre-workout, right? And I was doing this, I was incorporating a high fat diet because I understood that high fat meant high calories, and that was going to help me boost my weight gain, right? But the problem is I got fat. These are some pictures of what I was looking like. Yeah, I gained some muscle, yeah, I gained some size, but I got chubby and I got inflamed. And that is because the wrong fats, consuming the wrong fats, stalled my ability to gain muscle through inflammation and just wasted masculine development potential. Because these fats right here are pretty empty. These are just fats that are coming from bad sources like seed oils and hydrogenated oils, things that are not optimal for our human health. So the message that I want to give you right now is that you need to switch to more of an animal fat focus, right? There is nothing wrong with consuming an excess amount of fat, and in fact, it is ideal, it is optimal to gain mass as a skinny guy if you're trying to bulk up, right? But animal fat is just far superior. Targeting actual nutrients and actual like quality is way better. Just because, you know, we're trying to bulk up doesn't mean we have to sacrifice food quality, okay? So animal fat focus allowed for the highest yield results for me. It is when I got the most gains, and that's because animal fats help to boost your testosterone and therefore your ability to synthesize new muscle, and also boosting your testosterone, which not many guys talk about when it comes to building muscle and building an attractive physique from a skinny loser, right? Building your muscle and testosterone up will make you more assertive and will get rid of your loser mentality and will make you more strong and more disciplined and have more willpower. You'll be able to do a lot more stuff than you think, right? So you have to boost testosterone as well as build muscle. They go hand in hand. So it did that, but it also increased my recovery because of the optimal micronutrient intake, right? Because there are vitamins and minerals that we need to hit, right? You got to stop thinking that macros are the only thing that matter. And animal fats, especially ones from like red meats and stuff, they consume a lot of positive nutrients which our body needs to optimize our hormones and to optimize our recovery, right? And when I ate like this as well, when I focus on animal fats over random fats just because they were high in calories, my inflammatory markers went down heaps, right? And it allowed me to metabolize more efficiently, and therefore I wasn't bloated, and I improved my looks as a byproduct, right? You can see like in this picture right here, I look super bloated, and this was in the era where I was eating those like, you know, pestos and those not ideal fats, right? And I had this fat stomach. But now in the present, from eating more of an animal fat approach, you can see here my face much leaner, less inflammation, and I'm generally leaner as well overall. So the mistake number one that you need to address is focusing on eating animal fats and not focusing on just eating any type of fat just because it's high in calories. Now, mistake number 2 that I made, specifically related to diet again, was volume-based eating, okay? Now, one of the biggest limiting factors in bulking or gaining mass as a skinny guy, as someone who hasn't really trained before, is definitely appetite. I remember having to cram down foods and just being absolutely sick, trying to make shakes and trying to do all these things, and all to gain little to no weight, because I would not be able to finish them entirely. And if I did, I would just feel sick and I would just be inflamed and my fucking stress would be high. And all that shit actually impacts your ability to gain muscle and, you know, feel good in general. And what I started to realize was, just because I was eating more doesn't mean I was going to get bigger. Because you hear the get big, eat big, you know, term that all these bodybuilders tell you to do. But it comes down to what foods you're eating, which is actually going to determine if you're going to get big or not. So back in the day, I was doing things like eating this. I was eating this chicken, rice, beans, all these things, right? I was eating so much food, but this is how I looked. I looked like shit. I put on a bit of size, like I said, but I wasn't gaining the size that I wanted, and when I was gaining size, it was just going to fat, okay? So that's why what we need to do instead is focus on eating low volume foods which have high calories, because that way we're not going to be force feeding ourselves and making ourselves sick, making ourselves feel like shit, and therefore impacting our sleep, impacting our recovery, impacting our general health. Because you don't want to be the guy at the restaurant who's on a surplus and he's trying to cram down 4 pizzas, right? Trying to be sick in front of everyone. You don't want that shit. You want to have a good balance in life and you want to actually feel good. And we're trying to get the most bang for our buck when it comes to food. We want to be limiting or avoiding these type of foods, okay? Foods that bulk up any type of your meal, okay? So any form of leafy vegetable or salad item that add volume and make the meal bigger without actually adding calories. Because so many guys like talk to me, and I've talked to people, and I used to do it myself, you know, think that if you eat this massive bowl of salad or, you know, things like that, then you're eating so much food, and they complain about why they're not gaining weight. Well, it's simply because you're filling up your body with these super high water dense leafy vegetables and greens that have no calories at all. So you're wasting your appetite, right? You need to limit things like oatmeal. Oatmeal was a killer for me. I used to think that oatmeal was optimal for pre-workout, for meals, but when you make oatmeal the way I actually like it, the way that actually tastes good, it looks like fucking mud. It looks like a sludge, right? So you cannot get through it. You feel sick, and I always felt bloated, and I just always never trained optimally when I was eating it, right? Then you got things like lean white meats, like chicken breast in larger quantities, okay? There's nothing wrong. I want to say there's nothing wrong with eating chicken, okay? There's nothing wrong with eating lean fish. It just comes down to a volume basis, right? If you're trying to bulk up, it is so much harder to eat chicken than you realize. Bland, boiled ass chicken, even if you cook it alright, it can still get dry. It still takes forever to eat. And no doubt any guy who's in the gym right now, if you're starting out as well, you're experiencing this. You've fallen for the chicken trap, okay? The other thing is protein shakes by themselves, okay? If you're going to be having a protein shake, you want to be mixing it with other high calorie foods inside of the shake, because the protein, we know that protein is satiating. So if you're just having a protein shake by itself with a bit of milk, that's like 200 calories, okay? And honestly, when I drink protein shakes, because of all the bullshit they put in them, the digestive enzymes, the fake sugars, the fillers, everything, I feel full, I feel bloated. If you're trying to bulk, that's going to impact the amount of calories you can eat throughout the rest of the day, okay? And the other thing is, you know, low calorie fruits and vegetables that have high fiber content, it's just going to make you feel full, okay? So what we need to do instead is notice that gains will come when you focus on the low volume, high calorie options like I discussed, okay? So these are things like fatty cuts of red meat with ruminant animals. So things like red meat, things like, you know, kangaroo, all this kind of stuff, lamb, things like that, okay? You want to focus on eggs as well. You want to focus on whole fat milk, and preferably raw milk, because it's going to be better for your gut. You also want to be focusing on fatty fish and seafoods with a lower water volume, okay? Things like salmon are going to have way more fat in them and be easier to eat at a larger volume than things like watery fish, because it's just going to fill you up with a bunch of water and you're not actually getting that many calories when you think about it, okay? A good fruit that you can have are bananas. I used to snack on multiple bananas a day before and after the workouts. It was excellent for me. And dairy products like cheese, okay? They're going to be good. And a lot of these things, the reason why they are good is because of the fat. And linking to the first mistake I made, these have animal fats, which is what we actually want for a bulk, okay? Now, I want to, you know, drill in the difference, the seriousness of this, you know, comparison, okay? Because if you eat steak and rice on the left, you can imagine how quick it is to eat down a piece of steak and rice, okay? Compared to this massive ass chicken salad, they're both 1,000 calories. So obviously, which one would you have a harder time eating? The chicken salad. And this one here especially contains avocado, which is, you know, a fat food. You could eat avocado. That's a good food for bulking, right? Imagine you didn't put avocado in that and it was just something else that was low calorie, you're absolutely fucked and you're going to be sick. Okay, so prioritize eating low volume, high calorie foods. That is how you're going to gain the most mass, and that's how I was able to easily gain mass without even really thinking about it, without getting that full. And then finally, on to mistake number 3, which can be related directly to the previous 2 mistakes, and that is eating way too much. Okay, the most dumb mistake that people make, and I don't even blame you for making it, honestly, because it is so common. You hear eat big, get big, you hear need to be in a surplus, you hear bulk, and everyone thinks that means you need to eat an absurd amount of food, especially if you're a young guy starting out in the gym. They think that you have to cram down like 5 Zinger boxes a day and eat like 50,000 pizzas, okay? Now look, that's exactly what I was doing, okay? My average meals during school looked like this, okay? I was just blowing out my surplus. I was eating way too much. So you can see here, I'm eating that pesto meal that I told you about earlier. I'm eating nuts, I'm eating nut bars. Everything was super high calories, but not really stuff that had the optimal, fat in it. It was just random fats and processed fats with a bunch of other bullshit, okay? And I had my chicken meal here as well. You can see, literal chicken. So this was framing my body with, the hardest potential situation to gain muscle and to actually bulk properly, okay? Because I was eating a bunch of bullshit, which was fucking up my body composition, and I was eating a bunch of hard to eat foods as well. So I was struggling to get my calories in, and I was eating inflammatory foods. So fucking shit. And that's why I looked like this on my bulk. Extreme bloating and inflammation, and that's what will happen to you as well. You can see here, double chin, puffy cheeks, just straight cortisol, bro. Holy cortisol. And in this picture, I was working at Hungry Jack's, which is Burger King. Hungry Jack's is Burger King in Australia. And I was eating the burgers after my shift. I was eating fucking crumb chicken, just absolute bullshit fried products. Looked like shit, and I was stalling in the gym, okay? And the reason why it's so important to understand that you don't want to be eating in too big of a surplus is because of muscle building expectations and just simply putting science into the muscle building process, okay? Because how much muscle you can build is actually not as much as you think, okay? A beginner can build around half a kilo of weight in great conditions. These are optimal. This is someone who's never touched weights in their life. Then experienced can go 0.1 to 0.25 kilos per week in great conditions. And advanced, honestly, you're gaining like a kilo or 2 of muscle per year, and that's provided you're actually doing the correct methods, which get harder and harder to adhere to as you get more experience. So honestly, an extreme calorie surplus becomes increasingly redundant as your experience level goes up. So like obviously when you first start out, it is essential to eat a fair amount of food, but even still, you don't need that much, because scientifically it takes around 6,000 to 7,000 calories to build a kilo of muscle mass, and it takes around 7,700 calories to build a kilo of fat, or to gain a kilo of fat. We don't want to be building fat. So like I said here, in best case, if you gain half a kilo of muscle per week, that's assuming you are in a surplus of around 3,500 calories in the week. So that's about 500 per day on top of your maintenance. This is assuming that you are a complete beginner as well, and you still have lots of newbie gains and muscle building potential. If that is the case, and some of it is bound to be fat, why are you trying to eat extra 1,000 calorie surplus? It's honestly just going to be straight adipose tissue. You're just going to get fat as fuck. And that's what happened here. I was eating in a bulk, and you can see how shit I look. And the one interesting thing that I can tell you is, even if you follow the good foods, the positive animal fat advice that I told you, and you focus on, the low volume, high calorie eating, you can still overshoot this. You can get fat or you can get skinny by eating less or too much of any type of food. It doesn't matter if you eat 15 million tomatoes, you're still going to get fat. Just because it sounds healthy, you're still going to get fat, okay? It all comes down to the calories. And then like right here, you can see I'm just fat because I ate too much. And then it was only when I realized this and I started to limit my overall food consumption while focusing on the animal fat consumption and while eating for the proper, calorie goals, and understanding that the body can't build muscle that quick. That is when I started to look better, and my body recomped, which means it, reorganized its fat, it lost fat, and it built muscle instead, and then I looked better overall. And that is a similar state to what I'm in now, and it'll only get better from there because my knowledge expands. So with that being said, I hope this has helped you. These 3 mistakes were the most crucial things that I would advise you to avoid if you're a skinny guy, if you're a young dude trying to start the gym or trying to get into a bulking phase. Just be mindful that you need to eat low volume and high calorie foods. You should be focusing on getting your fats from animal fats to boost your testosterone and optimize your hormones and recovery so you can build muscle quicker. And you need to also keep in mind that you don't need to go insane with it. You don't need to turn into a water buffalo and go and become a bloat lord. It's not that hard to build muscle. This is just one key phase of changing your life forever, like I did myself. It was building the aesthetic physique. And if you want more help with that, as well as all other ways to improve your life, you can check the link below for my school community. But with that being said, progress is purpose, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.